Hello again, vets. This is 11 Bravo, and I'm Rick Seaman, and as always, we are about the combat vets. Now, we know that combat vets are grunts, and I've got a very special guest with me today who I think we're going to learn is really a true grunt. See this here? You know what that means? Well, I don't know what it means, but I'll tell you something about it. This gentleman that I'm about to introduce, when it comes to dedication, devotion, and compassion and service to veterans and sacrificing an entire lifetime to that service, this gentleman has more of that in his little finger than most Americans have in their entire body and mind. And with that, I'd like to introduce Mr. Shad Meshad. Shad, how are you?
Rick, pleasure being here.
Thanks for coming. I kind of cornered him. I kind of tricked him into coming in here, but this is my day with Shad and nothing else. So Shad, we got a lot to talk about. I think we should call this. How about we call this Shad Meshad Unplugged?
Scary. I don't know.
All right.
I hope you don't regret this.
Okay.
Hope I don't.
Let's see how it goes. Let's just give our audience that's not familiar with you who you are, where you got started. Your real name is Floyd Meshad. You were born in Birmingham, Alabama, 1944. Your mother was Scotch-Irish. Your dad was French-Lebanese. You grew up with 5 sisters. And one of your sisters, I know, Lynn, a very nice lady. You were a high school athlete. And then tell us about your graduate work, college, your studies. You got into psychological.
Yeah, I actually, after high school, was very interested in medicine and psychology. But I was also raised Catholic and was considering the seminary. So I tried it my first year at a Jesuit college as a, kind of like a plebe in the military. I was a scholastic, they called them, and a Jesuit. And, I just wanted to try it and see if I was fit to be, a scholastic person living a life as a priest or whatever. And I did 9 months and thought, not really, it was too structured for me. But I stayed on and finished my Jesuit education in Mobile, Alabama at Spring Hill College.
Right.
But during that period, in 62 to 66, the era when I was in undergraduate school, ROTC was big at all the universities. It was prevalent at all the, and they had it at this small Jesuit college. And so when I was, not going to be in seminary, I chose to just try it out. In other words, because the draft was kicking up, the war started to kick up. It hadn't really kicked off officially, as you know. Right. It kicked off in 64. But I thought, wow, if I get drafted, which the draft was in effect.
Right.
And at 19, you had to sign up for the draft anyway.
Right. And in those years, ROTC was pretty popular.
Oh, it's popular, yeah.
Yeah, not like, it's not that popular today.
Oh, no. A whole different time.
Yeah.
We'll get to that.
Okay.
But I think at that time, as the war got more and more involved and we started having casualties, even though we weren't officially there with our advisors and things. Had the opportunity to try it out. I got in there, and I was very physical, so it was fun. It was sort of a novelty. I wasn't really thinking about being a soldier. It was just something to do. It was like another class.
Right.
And most everybody were in it the first 2 years. After those 2 years, they decided who they thought was going to be soldier material, and then if you got accepted into what they call advanced ROTC, then the last 2 years things changed. It got pretty serious. I mean, they brought in actually advisors to all the universities that had been in Vietnam to really tell you what war is about, and I remember that pretty visually too. But for the most part, you're pretty naive. You're just going to be a soldier. You're marching and you're reading about all these weapons and manuals and stuff. And my father and my uncle were in World War II, and I thought, wow, this is a pretty interesting way. I'm
Yeah.
going to college, and if I decide to stay in, I'll be an officer. I won't be just some enlisted man. And
Right.
So
it's looking good.
Yeah,
It's looking good.
Looking good, whatever it was. And so I had a really good time. There were a lot of laughs and stuff or whatever. But my junior year, I was picked to go. You have to go to summer camp and go to a branch school and be trained. And every university sent people to different branches. I got the 82nd Airborne. Well, that was supposed to be really cool. Here we are, the creme de la creme of the Army anyway, and I'm going there for basic training. And I was a 170-pound rock. I thought, wow, I'll just go in there. This will be fun.
Yeah.
Summer of '65, Fort Bragg. I thought, well,
Yeah.
So I don't know. It was pretty incredible because the heat, the fact that this was the real training. And then, I got commissioned, second lieutenant infantry. But I also had a fellowship
Right.
that I applied for at the beginning of my senior year. By the time the end of the season, I got one to Florida State. But I had to ask the military because then, this is 65, 66.
Right.
So we were really into
We're in
the
it.
war.
Yeah.
We're in it. It's officially started, been in it 2 years.
Yeah.
It's not unpopular, but it's like people are going. And I got the deferment. I got a deferment for graduate school. 3%, I understood, in the country got that.
Wow.
So I'm a second lieutenant, now in reserve status, while everybody else is going on to advanced schools. They could have went on to advanced infantry, some that hadn't been to airborne training, Ranger School, Greenboro. There was a lot of specialties. I go to graduate school at Florida State, and I've got 2 years of scholastic work there. I did most of my work in correctional. I was looking at, becoming a criminologist or a criminal psychologist. I wasn't really sure. Just knew that, wow, this is cool, and I'm in school, and I'm also an officer. And yet, when you watch TV, and we don't watch TV today like we did then, which was very little. You were busy and active or whatever, but when you'd see the news, it was all Vietnam by 66, 67.
Yes.
And then from 66 to 68 in graduate school, even though I was in this continuing university fantasy world, becoming, quote, a professional, on the other side of that is a reality that all these soldiers are dying and they're getting into the thousands and the war's starting to get a little unpopular.
Now, when you're seeing this, you've already got buddies that you trained with in ROTC and at Fort Bragg. And some of them were in Vietnam by then, right?
Oh, yeah. Probably by 67, I started getting reports of friends that I actually went to school with, both high school, college, and at the the training at Fort Bragg, killed, injured, lost 2 legs or whatever. Very numbing, very numbing.
Right.
And actually, I started having guilt. Here I am, party school, getting on. I got the deferment or whatever. And then even my last year, the military writes to me and offers me a branch transfer to the Medical Service Corps, which takes me out of being a grunt, which at the time I was in, the average lifespan of a second lieutenant was 60 seconds.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm a second lieutenant infantry. And I'm thinking, and God struck and came down and offered me Medical Service Corps. Got all this infantry training, but I'm still a virgin, this is all training.
Yeah.
As you know, because you're a grunt.
Yeah.
So I get this, and I get accepted, and I'm a second lieutenant, and I get moved from second lieutenant, not to first lieutenant, but to captain, because I'm now a mental health expert, and all mental health professionals at that time were captains.
Right.
Doctors and psychologists.
And as all as this is unraveling, and you know Vietnam now, do you want to go?
No.
No. Okay.
No, I didn't want to go, but I had guilt, and it was always there. And still still virgin in the fact that I hadn't been in war. I've been trained, but I've watched all this death and dying. So to me, it's real, but it's still like a newspaper story. It's still like reading, one of my uncles died. But it was too close. So these are people that I sweated with, laughed with in basic, joked with, and they're really not there. But you have a way still of numbing your mind and blocking it and staying focused at what's in front. And so the next thing you know, I'm a medical service officer. All my training was in prisons. That was kind of my goal. I went to Fort Leavenworth. Another blessing. All about, it's like the way they tell you, just join and you'll get the assignment you want. It was like going really good.
So, well,
I got 11 words.
Like everything that doesn't happen to anybody else.
I'm one of the 5 mental health officers in the largest military prison in the world.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Hey, we're going to take a break. We are back, 11 Bravo, with Mr. Shad Meshad. So Shad, 69, late 69, early 70, you're on your way. Why don't let's just play it back like everybody else. Tell me what you were thinking on the way there, and what was your first reality check when you got there?
Wow. Your imagination just takes off. You know, you'd watched enough on there, and the fact that this is where so many people that you knew have died. This is where so many of your friends that you trained with, I was reflecting, 4.5 years earlier, trying to recall all of that training. And at SeaTac, I met 2 people I remember particularly. One was a young medic, and the other was an All-American football player from Notre Dame who was a tackle. He was this huge guy. He had gone through infantry, and he had went through OCS. And I never met anybody that was so afraid as his big ball player.
Yeah.
Because he knew, and for some reason, he knew more about where he was going. And I had wow, I remember thinking that I could have very well still been an infantry lieutenant where he is.
Could have been him.
And he's in there, and I'm living what I thought was going to happen to me, feeling every bit of his anxiety and the fact that it didn't matter how big or strong. He knew it was just something that little was probably going to take him out.
Where'd you land?
We landed in Cameron Bay.
Cameron Bay.
It's pitch black because they were having rocket and mortar attacks at night. And then as we got off, they started loading us on these buses and running us over to this huge warehouse area. And it's starting to be like a movie. There's these Jeeps with 50 cows and 30 cows running around the buses, and we go up to this place and we get out and we go inside this huge deep processing room. We're still in our dress screens, but as we're going in, there's this huge hurricane fence that goes up about 30 feet. It separates us from all these guys in fatigues and other uniforms that are loading on our plane to go home. And they're just standing there, and it was scary because they stared like they were all just drugged, and they were looking at us, and you couldn't look at them. It was just eerie. You see the plane lit enough, you could just see the lights, and they're loading them up in the rear to go home, and the plane we just got off. And that impact, the heat, the sweat, you're sitting there, and it's almost like if you're Catholic, you're thinking I'm in purgatory. I mean, God's going to walk out and tell us what my fate is.
And you're looking.
And God walked out. It was this full bird colonel on a microphone.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And this guy comes on and he tries to be funny. He says, "Tell all the boys goodbye. They've done their tour and welcome to Southeast Asia for your great tour." He says, "Before we get started, whatever," he says, "I just want to ask you to do me a favor. Take a look at the person on your right and to your left." And you're like, you kind of look over here, you look over there. He said, "If you're so lucky to be here, a year from now, one of those people will not be coming back. And probably the other will be injured or probably be medevaced out. Just hopefully you're the one that is standing over here and getting on this airplane." And that was it was opening statement.
Opening statement.
And I don't remember anything after that. It was just noise.
Yeah.
And now we got to get back on these buses. Officers in one bus listed, and they have processing in areas. Still in the night, and we're riding down some dirt trail somewhere in Cameron Bay, and all of a sudden the bus slams, a flare goes up, and the machine guns start blaring, and the sergeant driving the bus tells us they hit the floor. I'm in my dress blues, I'll never forget it. I'm on the floor, the big second lieutenant's on top of me, and we're shaking, and we're hearing rounds go off, which was the machine gunners firing into some fence, some satchel. We don't know what's going on. We're just sitting there in our dress screens. We don't have a weapon or nothing. We're in a bus. And this shit's going off. And everybody's wetting their pants. We're laying on that bus. I can smell it as I bend over. God. Don't let me die in my dress screens. No, don't let me die in my dress screens. I couldn't believe it. I'm laying there and I'm soaking wet. And I got this big dude. We're all hunched down, battling to get down in that aisle on like a school bus type of military bus, just a bus. And all that noise going off, and you just shaking. You don't know if this is whatever. And finally, it just stops. It's dead quiet. Guy comes up on the bus and says, some sapper just hit the fence. He's no problem. It's clear.
Moving on. Yeah.
And we're like, we're getting back into our seats. We've been laying, dirty old bus, you're in the grease, and you just feel face down on the floor. And in that, you drive over and you get out. And I mean, sappers in this area, I thought we were, this is in the field.
This is supposed to be the rear,
in the movies, it's in the field. I mean, what do you mean there's danger in here?
Yeah.
We're going to go change clothes with this guy.
Yeah. So being a medical corps officer, did you get moved along pretty quick?
No. We're still dogs. We're still. They're treating us like wow. I mean, the sergeants that have been there years and you're throwing it at you. You're just taking it. It's like going to football when you're freshman year.
Right.
Hope they fit.
What division were you assigned to?
I don't even know. I was just in a holding area for 3.
I mean, when
I went to an evac hospital, the 95th evac.
Okay.
The 5th Medical Group covered all of 1 and 2 Corps. I was under that umbrella of all medical services.
I Corps, 2 Corps.
1 and 2 Corps.
And where was that located?
In Da Nang.
Da Nang.
Headquarters was in Da Nang.
Right.
I mean, they had hospitals all over. And the commanding officer, the colonel that was in charge of all those, was on the hospital grounds because there were several MASH hospitals. But the 95th, he had his trailer. So.
Right.
So
what did you expect when you arrived in Da Nang? Did you think, okay, I'm going to have a desk and soldiers are going to come in here, I'm going to interview them and talk about their psychological problems? Is that what you were thinking?
No. I'll be honest, I wasn't thinking anything.
You didn't even know.
I mean, it was surreal. I mean, I'm talking about stuff I never think about. It was surreal. You just don't know where you're going next. I wasn't thinking of it. I was just thinking of, is this a bad movie or is this exciting? It was exciting. It was scary. It was like, I have no idea. I don't know what I'm going to be doing. I may be a mechanic. Because every time you sat there for hours, you met people.
Yeah.
But the ones that were scary, the ones that had been there, you'd see grunts that were coming on down from R&R out of units, sitting there catching a transport to an R&R checkpoint center to leave country.
Yeah.
And they looked at you, man, they were grungy, whatever, but they looked at you like they wanted to shoot you.
Sure.
And I got this new, super green. They see these captain bars. They figure I stole the uniform. I look all of 19.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And they think,
24-year-old officer.
I got a cap. I'm going to salute.
Oh, no. The grunts hated it. I didn't realize they hated it. It was like, I could talk to them. They wouldn't even salute you.
No.
Not that I was looking for a salute. I just wanted some company. And you land there and you're waiting in Da Nang and there's just this chaos. I thought, man, I remember the chaos in the early 60s when I went to New York and I'm at Grand Central Station. I'd never seen anything like it. It was like the greatest show on earth. This topped it. I mean, and I saw beards and stuff and people carrying weapons I'd never seen. Weapons we didn't have issued.
Yeah.
But you watch, you don't ask anybody anything. Just go to the desk, get me to my new quarters, So this guy picks me up in a Jeep and drives me all through Da Nang. We cross the Da Nang River and over to this VC fishing village where they tell me the 95th is. And there it opens up. It says Hell's Half Acre. That's the 95th evac. Hell's Half Acre. And you go through that gate, all the checkpoints, gun towers, and now my home is surrounded by machine guns and towers in a VC fishing village.
There you go.
Cha-ching.
Yeah.
At least I'm somewhere.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah. So, are you hanging in there? Are you all right?
I'm hanging in there.
All right. Folks, we're going to break this one off, and we're going to come back with part 2, Shad Meshad Unplugged, or possibly call it the Meshad Chronicles. But, Shad, thanks, and we're going to be back for part 2 and probably part 3 on this. 11 Bravo, Rick Seaman with Shad Meshad, out.